Well, welcome everybody once again to another episode of Luke Reacts. This week I am reacting to the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, which took place last week. I was not there, but my team was. We had over 40 people show up for a counter protest, and it was a great amount of fun because there's these moments where we have a bunch of people who are standing there with Israeli flags, American flags, and something new, a picture of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Now you might want to ask yourself, what the heck, Luke? Why are you having Dietrich Bonhoeffer on there? Well, a couple reasons. One, there's an upcoming movie coming out with Angel Studios, the people that did they're active behind The Chosen, the, uh, the film on and the human trafficking film that came out, and then also, yeah, they've been really like producing some really great films. Anyways, new Dietrich Bonhoeffer film coming out in November, and so they reached out to us and said, "Hey, in your demonstrations, could you guys hold some signs?" So Dietrich Bonhoeffer is there. And, for those who don't know who Dietrich Bonhoeffer is, he was really stood against the Nazis in Germany. Actually was part of the group that tried to assassinate Hitler. They failed, and he eventually was caught and hung by the Nazis in Germany for his treason against the Third Reich. So let me show you real quick here. We're gonna start off. We're gonna go fast because I got a lot to cover on this. So here's a quick video of the our team walking through the crowd of pro Hamas people that were there at the Democratic National Convention. And it's pretty amazing. These people are holding hands like, if you remember back when you were a kid, the game Red Rover, where kids are, hold hands and you have, two teams and you run across, try to break through. Well, that was kind of what was going on, except instead of, Red Rover, send Isaac right over. Isaac just walked with his Bonhoeffer sign right through them, and they parted ways. So it was pretty great video right there on Instagram. We had so much media. Our team walked through the crowd, and awaiting them back in kind of the place that they started was basically every news outlet that happened to be there at the DNC, which is basically every news outlet in the country. They were there, interviewed them. It's a great video. You should check it out. We're gonna put it right here. Just check it out. It's really neat. Watch this. All right, that's pretty amazing, right? I'm so jealous of those folks for who got to be there. I love to go to the counter protest thing. It's so fun, so fun. And if you want to join one of those counter protests, if you feel inspired by watching our crew just be like fearless in the face of angry Hamas people, go over to Generation Zion and become a member. gen-zion.org. That is our advocacy organization that we're just getting off the ground right now. It's pretty amazing. So, who was at the DNC? Obviously, the Democratic National Convention is the convention. Republicans did theirs earlier this year. This is the Democrats' version. Basically, all the delegates from all the states come together and nominate who's going to be the representative for the Democratic Party. Outside was a bunch of organizations that were like really not happy with the Democrats and represented a bunch of what might be called extremist organizations. Yes. So the folks over at the Capital Research Center, this guy Ryan Morrow, who I've known for a really long time, put out this great report, and I'll include it in the links. Basically, as far as he could tell, there was going to be 279 groups that were going to be part of, the coalition to march on the DNC. Now, of that group, 162 of them, that's 71% of them, were qualified as extremists, and they represented things like there was 19 organizations that had expressed support for terrorist organizations, right? So it's like people who were pro Hamas, pro Hezbollah, pro Houthi, pro Iranian, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine. I could go on and on and on, but basically, a proper 19 groups supported actual terrorist organizations. Now, there was a bunch of other ones that were, your normal, like run of the mill Marxists too, and the way that they define Marx extremists here is really important, because it's not, people throw that word around, but here Ryan is being very careful, and so the extremist definition says, and here's what they got in their report, and you check it out: documented ties to or publicly expressed support for terrorism or terrorist groups, check, which they did. Ties to or publicly express solidarity with hostile foreign governments, i.e. Iran, or I don't know, the Taliban is running Afghanistan, they're on that list, or support for anarchism, Marxism, or communism, all of which are not only extreme, but they're like deadly. There was 100 million people died because of Marxism in the last in the last century. It's they're kind of bad. And so like I said, of the 279 organizations, 71% that showed up to protest or march or whatever were extremist organizations. Between the the pro Hamas people and the Marxist, communist, anarchists, etc., it was a hot mess. So one of the things that I think is important for us to recognize as we're thinking about this, because we're not just thinking about this from a perspective of normal politics, but I do want to bring a bit of Bible into this, and there's a passage, or not, it's more than a passage. Psalm 83 talks about, it starts off, "O God, do not keep silent, do not hold your peace or be still, O God. For behold, your enemies make an uproar. Those who hate you have raised their heads. They lay crafty plans against your people. They consult together against your treasured ones. They say, come, let us wipe them out of the nations. Let the nation of Israel be remembered no more. For they conspire with one accord against you and to make a covenant." And here's really interesting list of nations that are in this conspiring, right? Edom and the Ishmaelites, the Moabites and the Hagrites, Gabal and Ammon and the Amalek and Philistia, and the inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur has joined them. They are a strong arm of the children of Lot. And it goes on. But I want to mention specifically that first couple, right? So in the kind of Jewish sages, there is Edom represents Rome. And I'm not talking like the Roman Catholic Church. What I'm talking about is pagan Rome, right? That was particularly at the, in the biblical era, for both the Old and New Testament, like paganism was strong. And Ishmael represents the Islamists. And so what happens when, according to the Jewish sages, when Edom and Ishmael come together, they form the spirit of Amalek. And the Amalekites were when the Jews were marching or in the desert, wandering in the desert, Israelites, in their 40 years in the desert, they were attacked from behind by the Amalekites. And which means that, they went after the weak, the women and the children. And so when Saul became king of Israel, he was told by Samuel to wipe out the Amalekites, and he did not. And as a result, it was one of the reasons that the kingdom was taken away from Saul, was because he didn't do that. So it's really interesting. You read that Psalm 83, those nations that are aligning themselves against Israel, the same now, right? Edom, if Edom represents the pagans, and Ishmael represents the Islamists, and then you have the land of the Philistines was Gaza. The one of the capitals of the Philistines was Ashdod and Ashkelon. Both of them exist to this day. I mean, both they're Israeli towns down near Gaza. And it says, and the inhabitants of Tyre. Where's Tyre? Tyre is in Lebanon. It's you could say it's the Islamist of Hezbollah. All those nations were surrounding themselves against and aligning themselves against Israel back in the day, and once again today, right? So you have these extremist groups listed here, Marxist and Islamist, and they're coming together. They're marching together. They're joining. So this, be watching out for this red-green alliance. The red representing the communist Marxists, the green representing the Islamists, and they are forming the spirit of Amalek. And those of us who are not Jews or Israelis, we are not the first target. But those of us who are Christians, who take our Bible seriously, who believe that God wrote that psalm, he inspired it. David wrote those psalms through the inspiration of God through the Holy Spirit. That Psalm 83 is we get grafted into that story of the Bible, and so when the Islamists are coming against us, against the Jews and the Israelis first, the Christians are next, right? So don't think that you're off the hook, because you're not. They're coming for us too, and we've seen that. In the places where they drove out the Jews back in the day, and they're driving out the Christians now, right? Like it's happening. It's happening. Gaza. It's happening all over the place, right? So we got to do our best to remember that we are part of this. We get grafted into the blessings as Christians, and we also get grafted into let's say the hatred that comes from the nations towards the people of the Bible. So keep that in mind. All right, so check out that report by Ryan Morrow. It's really quite, well, it's disturbing, obviously, but it's really important to recognize this. There is this alliance that's forming. Okay. Now, who else showed up at the DNC? Well, none other than the one and only Crackhead Barney. And you ask, like, who the heck is Crackhead Barney? All right. Well, let me have this video played for you right here. It's coming off on X. Apologize for any foul words that are spoken. But so plug your kids' ears if you're in the car with them, or lower the volume for what is this? 30 seconds. Go for it.
Give back our land! See, look, I did a black man. Free Palestine! Did black men stop him? That's why you're really angry.
All right, that's enough, crackhead Barney. All right, so you get the idea. That's who she is. So I don't know if you remember, last month I was in Washington D.C. to because I got invited to meet with Bibi Netanyahu, and I had finished the meeting, and I was going to go back on the train, and I walked to Union Station, and I had seen the monument outside Union Station was spray painted with this red triangle, and which is symbolizing the targets of that Hamas uses that red triangle to designate its targets for where it's going to launch a rocket or shoot a sniper rifle, whatever. And it said, and they had spray painted on the monument, "Hamas is coming." Right. So I'm like stumble upon this, and I'm like, oh. And so I do a quick video, just on my phone, talking about the red triangle, because I had wanted to talk about it ever since I had been, somebody had used this motion of a triangle, and they had like at me kind of thing, and I was like, what the heck? And so I found out it meant like a target for Hamas, right? So I'm thinking, oh, here's an example, and I can talk about it while I'm talking on my phone. All right. So I'm standing there, and one of my colleagues, Isaac Woodward, came up, and he happened to have this flag that I like to hold, which has the American and Israeli flag on the same flag. And I hold it up, and I tell you, it's like, it was like the call. All of a sudden, people from all over the place started coming over. And wow, thank you for standing, and wanting to get pictures, and so I was getting pictures with people, and we're all having a good time. And then Crackhead Barney showed up, and I had known this, and she put the microphone in my face, and she starts, you want dead babies or something, and I was like, no, you do, because I had seen her before. So it's like, it's a good thing to, for a guy like me to be on social media, because I had seen Crackhead Barney loves to go to to harass the pro-life marches. She'll always show up at those things. And so I'd seen her from those, and I knew who she was. And so I wasn't playing around with her, and she was very disappointed that I wasn't giving her the sound bites she wanted. And so there's a video of me getting harassed by Crackhead Barney, which I'm going to put right here. And the funny thing, I don't know, funny, but so she brings over this guy to pick a fight with me, and I'm just kind of talking to him, being very reasonable, as I am, and he was suddenly very interested in what I had to say, and so then he's trying to bring me, let's go talk over here, because Crackhead Barney keeps putting a microphone in his mouth and trying to get him to be all agitated and confront me and give me a hard time, whatever. But he's very interested in what I have to say. And at the same time, this woman had walked up, and she's walking around us, speaking in tongues. And she's my like guardian angel, because she's casting out demons out of Crackhead Barney, and Crackhead Barney like walks away. You can see it in the video. It's a pretty hilarious video, because here's this moment where this crazy lady is trying to pick a fight with me. This other guy is like interested in talking to me, so he says, "Come over here. I got my flag." And all the while, this woman is walking around us speaking in tongues. It's a beautiful picture. I love it. It made me laugh. But that guardian angel of mine, she wouldn't let me. She stuck by me. I came up there. I said, she stopped beside me, and I was like, "Thank you so much." She's like, "I'm here for you, and I'll walk with you until you get on your train." So literally, she did. She was with me like 30 minutes, just praying for me, which was really special. I felt I got a little bit emotional when I was with her being there. It was clear to me, perhaps she was walking by and she saw all that was going on, and felt like God said, go pray for that guy who needs it, because I did at that moment, and it was great to see her come around. So check out this video of Crackhead Barney giving me a hard time.
Because I started this shit, and you're not going to tell me to move. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Just come over here. What's going on?
All right. That was again, sorry for the language. In those environments, I just gotta say, they're not Christian environments. So if you ever go to one of those counter protests, just be ready. The language is aggressive. So listen, it was outside of the Democratic National Convention. It was a hot mess, right? There was all kinds of people, all kinds of demonstrations, marches representing all kinds of people, and there was us. We were counter protesting, and Crackhead Barney showed up, and it was. But inside, there was they had barricades, and people who got in there were legit, and so they people were marching around or walking around, and there was some really great speeches. I was really impressed when this couple, John and Rachel Goldberg Poland, their son Hirsch is being held hostage. When they walked onto the stage of the DNC, it was quite electrifying. Watch this.
At this moment, 109 treasured human beings are being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. They are Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists. They are from 23 different countries. The youngest hostage is a 1-year-old red-headed baby boy, and the oldest is an 86-year-old mustachioed grandpa. Among the hostages are 8 American citizens. One of those Americans is our only son. His name is Hirsch. He's 23 years old. And like Vice President Kamala Harris, Hirsch was born in Oakland, California.
So that was really touching. I mean, really, there was a lot of emotion, there, and I think there is. I have to actually watch it. Be careful of this myself. I'm a partisan. Okay, I am. I'm biased. I'm biased towards Republicans. I'm one can imagine as a white evangelical male, middle-aged even, who I might vote for in the upcoming election. I know it's a mystery, but I am a partisan. And so I'm a bit more suspicious, I would say, about the intent of, is the support among Democrats for Israel and the Jewish people as strong as it is among Republicans. I think it's more stronger among Republicans. But to see that the chanting bring them home and the emotion in the room was quite moving. And so hats off to the Democrats, the delegates that were there that led that chant, that they put forth the Goldberg Poland couple, and I really appreciate that. And I also was really pleased, I gotta say, very pleased with the strong words out of Kamala Harris. She was also very clear and articulate about support for Israel, and mentioned Hamas, which is a really good thing to listen for in when there's these condemnations or affirmations. Will Hamas be mentioned? Because the UN has Security Council keeps passing all these resolutions against Israel and are mentioning Israel, and sometimes they mention the hostages, but they never mention Hamas. And so the UN is illegitimate in this whole fight, because they have clearly picked a side, and the side's against Israel. Mind you, the UN hates two things above all else: babies in the womb and the state of Israel. So it's no surprise that they'll totally, give a pass to Hamas. But Kamala had a great and very clear message. Watch it here.
Let me be clear. I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7, including unspeakable sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival. At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
Okay, so there was a lot to unpack there. I really, again, really appreciate the strong support, and say, she's gonna not let Israel give Israel the tools it needs to be able to defend itself. That's important, because we have some deals with Israel in terms of we did some joint projects together and built some things together, and therefore, as a result, like the Iron Dome battery system is the same as our Patriot missile battery system, uses the same rockets, uses the same launchers, uses the same tech, but that was a joint project, right? And so part of the deal was the U.S. makes the rockets, and so we're Israel is dependent upon the U.S. for the Iron Dome rockets that take out the rockets from the terrorist organizations and from Iran. So it's important that that support's there. It's important, as I said before, that Hamas gets mentioned as being a terrorist organization. That's important. And interestingly enough, in her support for the Palestinian people, decried the destruction and the lack of safety of for the people of Gaza. I guarantee there was just the all-out push by the administration to get a ceasefire deal during during the convention, because that would have been just like magic. It would have been such good PR for them, but they couldn't pull it off. But they tried, but they didn't mention the establishment of a Palestinian state. They mentioned the establishment of Palestinian self-determination, which don't get me wrong, I'm pretty confident that they want a two-state, a Palestinian state, but the reality is that it's not likely going to happen anytime soon. Okay, no, like there's no expectation on the ground for it. Everybody else around the world is like, oh, there should be an Israeli state and a Palestinian state living side by side. It's that, but nobody on the ground is thinking that. And so we can have all kinds of fantasies about how we think it should be, but it's not going to be that way. It's like me thinking, oh, New York City is going to vote Republican this term. No, they're not. Right? I can pretend and think about it, and say, oh, but here's all these data points. No, it's not going to happen. Okay. And so, there's fantasy and there's reality. And the reality is there's not going to be a Palestinian state. So the question becomes then, how do you give Palestinian self-determination? That's the right question. That's the question that we should be asking. That was the question how we should be discussing when we're talking about anytime the issue of Palestinian statehood comes up. We should really be just clear. But all that to say, she didn't mention there being a Palestinian state. She wanted Palestinian security and self-determination. That's a good thing. I want that too. I want that for the Palestinians. I want it for the Israelis. I think there was a lot of internal wrangling that went on about whether the Palestinians there was somebody that was going to represent the Palestinians there at the convention and speak from the platform. There wasn't, and so that was a factor too. There was no one. You had somebody representing the hostages. No one came and kind of stood and represented the Palestinians, which angered all the Palestinian activists for sure. Okay, so so kudos to Kamala Harris for being vocal, being clear, that kind of thing. Here's my problem. The staff choices of Kamala Harris has makes me question how strong that commitment is. Okay. And I'll give some examples. Okay. So her every person who runs or is running for president, somebody who's running for Senate, they always have like a foreign policy advisor or a national security advisor, somebody who's kind of like helping them think through the policies and that kind of thing. So Kamala Harris's guy is this guy named Philip Gordon. Now, Philip Gordon is not is a questionable individual. Okay, and there's this some members of Congress have written to basically the vice president and expressed significant concern about her national security advisor or her foreign policy advisor, this Philip Gordon guy. And it's because he has a long history of being close with and defending the Iranian regime. Okay? Like, the Ayatollahs, the people who want to who regularly voice, like publicly say, down with America, down with Israel. They paint the American and Israeli flag on the streets at the entrance to, the mall in Tehran and try and get people to walk on him. Okay. This is the people that Philip Gordon want us to be friends with, want us to trust. And so just as when Barack Obama came into office, or when he was getting the nomination in 2008 to be president, he also gave a really strong endorsement of Israel and support for Israel, but then cozied up with the Iranian regime and pivoted away from the Sunni Arabs and joined and stood with and kind of made common cause with the Iranian regime. And in that whole, in the upper echelons of the Obama administration was Philip Gordon. And so there's this letter from I think it's signed by Tom Cotton and Elise Stefanik. Tom Cotton's the senator. Elise Stefanik is a member of Congress. Yeah, and asked for some information. Asked specifically for no later than August 9th, and I guarantee they didn't get anything that was asked here. But it said this: when you hired Mr. Gordon, were you aware of his connection to this woman named Arain man, I'm going to butcher this, Talabastii, something like that. Okay, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name. The IEI and NIAC. Now, the NIAC is the National Iranian American Council. And what is that, you ask? What is the National Iranian American Council? It is the pro-Tehran lobby shop in Washington, D.C. There's all kinds of, every lobby shop, every government on earth has somebody lobbying for their cause in Washington, D.C. It's the lucrative path of many people there, because you go to Congress, maybe you're in Congress for a couple of terms and you lose, or whatever, and then you become a lobbyist. Or on the other hand, you could be a staffer, a Hill staffer, and you serve on the administration for, or you serve in the administration or a member of Congress for a couple of years, and you get all these relationships, and then you become a lobbyist. So the National Iranian American Council is the pro-Tehran, the pro-Islamic regime in Washington, D.C. Okay, Philip Gordon has been a part of that for a while, and this woman, this Ariane, she was part of this basically handpicked by the Iranians to kind of be their their ally, their spokesperson. Not spokesperson is too strong, but their friend. The other thing they're asking for, did Mr. Gordon undergo security screening and receive security clearance when you hired him? Does he have an active security clearance? Did you request further investigation into Mr. Gordon when Miss I'm gonna butcher this again, whatever, connection to the Iranian Foreign Ministry that were revealed on September 2023. Did Mr. Gordon admit or report his ties to this individual? Have you or Mr. Gordon met with other members of the IEI, including Ali Velez? Have you met with Miss Talibai personally? Et cetera, et cetera. A couple more. All right. So her main guy is suspect, pro-Iran guy. Okay. There was a high level briefing a couple weeks ago in the Situation Room, as they call it, where the vice president was there, and all the members of President Biden's team were there talking about what could happen with Iran. Expectation was that Iran was going to launch another big attack on Israel. And it was in the room was Kamala Harris and this guy, Philip. And she actually left early, we're all told. And it makes me wonder if she, left early because there was suspicion about him being in the room, there's a lot of suspicion in that direction, and it's rightly so. So you have on one hand Kamala making this great speech at the DNC, but then, her one of her senior advisors is this guy, Philip Gordon. And it didn't stop there. Okay. Just before the DNC, the week before, she appointed her Jewish outreach person, this guy named Ilan Goldenberg. Okay. Now, I think, well, sounds like a normal Jewish guy, must be pro-Israel. Yeah, you'd be wrong, because he is also a long history of he was part of the Obama administration. And David Milstein has really broken down a bunch of reasons why this Ilan Goldberg guy is probably not to be trusted when it comes to Israel. And you see this. I mean, this is a pretty strong pattern that I think is going to get much worse of Jews, even they could be Israeli-born Jews who are antagonistic towards Israel. and that becoming a real wedge issue between Jews in the United States, and how Christians fall on that can be pretty challenging, right? Because we want to support Israel and the Jewish people. It means all the Jewish people, even the ones that don't agree on Israel. But we also think that the better way, let's call it, is to support both, right? All right. So what does Ilan Goldenberg say? Is it Goldenberg or Goldberg? Goldberg. Sorry. What does it say about his activities under the Obama administration? And so if anything you hear about, it's not like his position's changed. This is what he held before, and it's likely to be the same because there's no evidence that of otherwise. So he supported Obama's abstention of the Anti-Israel Security Council Resolution 2334, which Secretary Kerry put forth at the end of the Obama administration. He opposed the Trump administration's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital and moving the embassy to Jerusalem, consistent with law. He opposed merging the U.S. consulate to the Palestinians in the U.S. embassy in Jerusalem. He opposed the U.S. recognition of Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, which is absolutely important to Israel's security. He supported the Iran deal and opposed leaving the deal, opposed putting maximum pressure on Iran, and opposed the Taylor Force Act, which ends U.S. economic assistance to the Palestinian Authority, because the Palestinian Authority has this whole play to slay thing, which is basically, if somebody kills a Palestinian in Judea and Samaria or the West Bank kills an Israeli and is sent to jail or dies, actually, his family gets money every month, like $3,000 or something like that, which is so it does incentivize, it incentivizes terrorism. Okay, support for restoring funding to UNRWA, which is the humanitarian refugee organization that has been found to be in bed with Hamas pretty consistently. So that's just I'm just reading this. This list keeps going. It doesn't get any better, folks. It's bad all the way down. And so he's been on the wrong side of so many of these issues, and he's the one who is also advising the Harris campaign on Jewish outreach. And so which you can imagine which Jews he's going to find common cause with. How about maybe Jewish Voices for Peace, or If Not Now, or J Street, which are all antagonistic towards Israel and are Jewish. And so it really, one of the things you got to always keep in mind in any kind of administration, political administration, is yes, at the top of the ticket will be, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, but they don't make all, like, there's thousands of people below them are making decisions all day long, every day, and who they decide to fill those roles, who are making those decisions, matter. Okay, that's why they say personnel is policy. Okay, keep that in mind. Personnel is policy. So when you hire somebody, you're signaling, oh, what's our position going to be? Well, here's two people. You got Philip Gordon, pro-Iran. You got Ilan Goldberg, pro-Iran. Okay, so of the two. Okay, then the third, this guy named Mahdi Hassan. Mahdi has been he is currently in the administration as one of Biden's senior national security advisors. He's not the national security advisor, but he's senior. And what is his background? Well, he was on the board of Students for Justice in Palestine. He is an activist, a pro-Palestinian activist, and at this point, that line is pretty blurred. It's hard to, when the war ends, we'll go back to the way it was before, where you get this kind of 50-50 split or 40-60 split support for a Palestinian state, and it's peace with Israel, etc. But right now you have a situation where there's like 70, no less than 70% of support for October 7th among Palestinians, right? So that becomes real problematic. Again, personnel is policy. So what do you have here? Philip Gordon, pro-Iran. Ilan Goldberg, pro-Iran. Mahdi Hassan, pro-Iran. That makes it really hard to think that there's going to be this really strong support for Israel when the primary advisors are all supporting Israel's primary enemy. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? It's like, we're pro Ukraine, and you voice all your support for Ukraine. We're for Ukraine. We're going to give them weapons. We're going to do all this stuff for Ukraine. We're standing with it. You get the flag with the blue and the yellow of Ukraine, showing that on your Facebook, posting that out there in the world that you're standing with Ukraine. And at the same time, you're like doing all this work with Russia in support of Russia, and you're like, Putin's not that bad. He's just misunderstood. We got to take a more neutral stance. We got to, it's like, here's a couple $100 billion, Russia, just in case, for whatever, sanction relief. And then, you're surprised that Russia's all run around causing trouble in the region. Well, that's how this is playing out with Israel and Iran, because Iran is not a friend, guys. It's not. And the Obama administration started the shift from the Sunni Arabs, like represented by Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Egypt and all those countries, and pivoted to supporting Iran. And there was a pause for about 4 years where, under Trump, things went back to the way they were before. And under Biden has gone back to this kind of footsie, checking the girl out across the room relationship with Iran. It's not going to end well. So I have a lot of suspicion. I'm going to, it's gotta be real. I gotta be Luke. I got a lot of suspicion about Harris's long-term commitment to Israel. Politics is, the words out of politicians' mouths are cheap. They are. What matters is what they do. And what matters even more is what they don't, like, they never, they don't ever tell anybody, kind of thing. Like, what's the things that happen behind the scenes, because that really determines where the truth lies. And listen, it's complicated business. It's not a safe world. It's not an easy world, but this kind of, what worries me, final point here, what worries me is that under the Biden administration, we have watched the disintegration of Afghanistan, Iraq. There's wars in Sudan, and the Houthis are literally, they blew up a tanker that spilled more oil into the Red Sea than the Exxon Valdez did in Alaska. If you remember, I was young at the time, but there was, the the ducks coated in oil from the Valdez disaster. There was this big fine, and then the Houthis blow up an entire tanker, and the world's like, who cares, right? Because it's so weird. I don't understand the world, but all this is happening. All these new wars that have cropped up during this administration. It should make you think. There is peace through strength, and then there's non-peace through non-strength, and that's what the Biden administration has shown throughout its tenure, is that it's not strong, and it doesn't see strength as the value. It's, who knows what it is. And the technocrats or whoever's running the machinery behind the scenes, think they have all the answers, but they tend to be non-religious. They have contempt for religious people. They don't understand the world as it is. They have this fantasy world, and they're promoting things that are just are such distractions, right? Like how many, they're obsessed with what country in Africa, allows same-sex marriage. That's an obsession. So you can imagine that these other countries in the world that are run by tyrants see the weakness and do stuff like invade Ukraine or invade Israel, because they see weakness in this current administration. And my hope is Republicans win. But if the Democrats win, then they need to really show that they are strong, because the world, we don't need more world wars than we got. So, all right, I'll leave that there, so you know what I think. This has been Luke Reacts, and I would really love it if you would like and subscribe, because we've gotten a lot more subscriptions since I started doing this, and it really does. It makes a difference. I get to tell people how much we've grown, 500% in some of our data sets. So it's huge. So thank you so much for all who have already subscribed. Those who like, comment. I'm here for it. It's a fun time. Also, please know that we are listener supported. We'd love to get a donation from you. If you want to support us on a regular basis, click that recurring button, and we'll see your every month. We'd love that. So consider a donation to the Philos Project, and it helps continue our work to try and kind of unpack what's going on in the world, what's going on with, as we stand in friendship and solidarity with Israel and Jewish people, that we stand with our fellow Christians who are persecuted and marginalized. And we just, we muck around the space. So thank you very much for listening and watching. Hope you have a great week. Thank you very much.